Okay, hi everybody. So today we're going to be talking about multiple sclerosis. And what is multiple sclerosis? Well, multiple sclerosis is a condition in which your body's own immune system attacks something that's called myelin that's on nerves. So let's go ahead and take a look at myelin and multiple sclerosis. So this is a nerve, and these are called dendrites on this side of the nerve. Dendrites basically receive information, and then they send it to the cell body that's in the nerve. This is sometimes called the soma. From there, the information is going to travel down something called an axon. Axons carry nerve impulses away from the cell body. Axons can go to either a muscle, a gland, or to another nerve. This right here is an unmyelinated axon. So if I had a nerve impulse or electrical signal coming from the cell body that was to go down this axon, it would have to travel the whole way. Now, if it has to travel the whole way, this impulse moves at about 2 miles per hour. This is an unmyelinated axon. If we add myelin to it, and myelin is basically just a lipid that's put around here, I'm going to add myelin onto this. And I make it look like the myelin is actually covering the nerve. It surrounds it. It doesn't eliminate it, even though you can't see it right now. The axon passes through the myelin. So what happens now when I have a myelinated nerve, the impulse, instead of traveling down the nerve like we saw with an unmyelinated axon, in this case, it can skip over the myelin, and it makes it travel much faster. If I have a myelinated axon, it can travel anywhere from 40 to 300 miles per hour. So you can see this is much faster than if I don't have myelin. So things such as your eyes or keeping your balance, they want to be on myelinated fibers because we need the brain to respond to those signals very quickly. So here's what happens when we have multiple sclerosis. You have something called the blood-brain barrier. So let's say this is a blood vessel. And then what's going to happen is inside your blood, you have something called T cells. T cells are a form of white blood cell. And what they do is they're responsible for attacking bad things that come into your bodies, what we normally call germs. Well, in this case, what's going to happen is the T cell is going to leave the bloodstream, and it's going to come up and it's going to attack the myelin. Here's my T cell. All right, so it's going to attack the myelin. The other thing it's going to do is once it does that, it sends signals so more T cells will come. They don't know why your own immune system starts to attack your own body. But the other thing these T cells will do is they'll release something called cytokines. And what cytokines do is they will then open up this blood vessel even more. And when it opens this blood vessel, now what can happen is you can get the release of something called B cells. Okay, so now I'm going to get B cells, and I'm also going to get something called, that's my B cell, and I'm going to get something called macrophages. Okay, and this is my macrophage right here. That's the nucleus I'm drawing in the center right there. That's my macrophage right there. Now, on this nerve, what happens is, to make myelin, we have something that's on it, which is called an oligodendrocyte. This is my oligodendrocyte. So oligodendrocytes make the myelin. Well, when the B cells are signaled by the cytokines, what they're going to do is they are going to make antibodies. Antibodies are Y-shaped. Okay, and what these antibodies will do is they will also attack the myelin, but they're also going to attach to our oligodendrocyte. Let me write oligodendrocyte right here. So there's my oligodendrocyte. Okay, so they're going to actually attach this. I think there's an I right there. They're actually going to attach to this. And then what happens is this macrophage, the macrophages will view this oligodendrocyte as a bad guy. And now my macrophage will come and it will actually attack this oligodendrocyte also, because it thinks it's not supposed to be there. And again, this is the nucleus. So it's going to attack that. It's actually going to try to eat it. It's called phagocytosis. At this point, someone would see symptoms because we have our T cells coming in, right, which are attacking our myelin, right? And we need to replace this myelin. The myelin's not working anymore, or the myelin's being destroyed, and the oligodendrocyte, which makes the myelin, is being destroyed. So eventually what happens is, what's going to be released is what we call a regulatory, I'm going to have it right here, we call this a regulatory T cell. And this is my regulatory T cell right here. So what the regulatory T cell will do is it'll tell all these, it will inhibit these. It'll tell these things to stop what they're doing. So now these will stop, right? This episode's over. Okay, so this whole episode's over. My macrophage stops attacking this here. My oligodendrocyte heals up and it starts to make myelin again. So now that it's making myelin again, the person starts to function normal again. And so therefore the episode goes away. But the thing that happens is then eventually this happens again, where all of this happens again. And then the same thing happens, and my regulatory T cell basically stops all this. Then it happens again. But every time it happens, there's more and more damage to the oligodendrocyte. So eventually the oligodendrocyte cannot make myelin. And when that happens, basically the condition becomes permanent. Okay? So just to reiterate, what's going to happen is my T cells are going to come in, they're going to release cytokines, which are going to basically open up the bloodstream so I can get B cells and T cells, B cells and macrophages to come in. More T cells are going to come in. They view the myelin as if it's a germ in the body that shouldn't be there. It's called an autoimmune disorder because my own immune system is attacking my own body, right? And it's going to attack these. And then my B cells are going to make antibodies, and the antibodies basically tell the macrophage what to attack. In this case, it's the oligodendrocyte. So now what happens is, once again, my regulatory T cell comes in, basically tells everybody to calm down, stop what you're doing, you're attacking the wrong thing, go home, and then this heals up, and then this happens. But again, over time, with more and more attacks, this starts to become weaker, and the myelin it makes becomes weaker. So when we have the attack, we'll start to see symptoms. So let's take a look at symptoms on this. Let's say that this nerve goes to the eye. So if I start to lose my myelin, all right, they actually call areas where this gets damaged, they call them plaques, or sclera, I think is what it's called. Okay, it's basically like a type of scar tissue when it starts to grow back. That's where the term sclerosis comes from. So if this goes to my eye and my myelin's not working, the impulse cannot travel down the way it should. One of the first symptoms that we see with multiple sclerosis is sometimes there's blindness in one eye. All right? Sometimes people will get color blindness. It'll be red-green color blindness. Color blind. And again, it's red-green color blindness. I think I already wrote that. Okay. So I have red-green color blindness, right? They may have blurred vision. Okay, once again, because if this signal is supposed to be traveling, let's say 300 miles an hour, and now it's going slower, it's taking longer to get to the brain. Sometimes people will get, like we said, blurriness. Sometimes what will happen in the field of vision, you'll just have a black dot right in the center of the field of vision. If this is, then let's being that we're doing this, now let's say the whole attack stops, my oligodendrocyte repairs the myelin, all of a sudden, these symptoms go away. Let's say this affects a nerve, a motor nerve, okay? So let's say it's a motor nerve that's gonna basically help my muscles work, right? My legs work. Well, what's gonna happen now is we get the damage again, my macrophage is attacking here, my myelin's getting destroyed, all right? And my myelin's getting destroyed. What can happen is I can have loss of balance, all right? I can have difficulty walking, like obviously, difficulty walking if there's loss of balance, okay? So that's some other things that can happen there, okay? If this happens to affect the nerves that go to my swallowing muscles, right? I can have swallowing problems, difficulty swallowing. We actually call that aphasia. It can affect the eye muscles. Now it can affect the sensory nerve, because again, this can affect sensory or motor nerves. It can affect the motor nerves to my eye, and if it does that, when I look to the side, I may actually get nystagmus. What nystagmus is, it's a fluttering of the eye when you look to the side. And on abduction. Okay, so when I look to the side, my eye will start to flutter. There can be incontinence with this also. Let's say the opposite though. Let's say this is on a sensory nerve. Well, I'm just going to leave this as if it's damaged. If it's on a sensory nerve, sometimes what happens is people get a feeling of paresthesia, which most commonly is known as pins and needles. So we get the pins and needle sensations. Okay. Some people have described this as the MS hug too. You'll feel like in certain areas, like maybe around the waist or maybe in the feet or the hands. And they call it, like I said, they call that the MS hug. Because now we're getting signals that should be getting to the brain, can't get there because of the fact that we have damage to the myelin. Okay? The other thing is there's something called the Met sign. And what happens in the Lemaitre sign is when a person looks down, they will get tingling in the hands, or maybe even the feet, more commonly in the hands, and also a sharp electrical shooting sensation down the spine. Okay? So, we get this. Just some things really quick. Usually this is more likely to occur in females, so it's more common in females. Usually it's diagnosed between the ages of 20 and 40. They think there's a genetic component to it. In fact, there is a genetic component to it. In fact, the gene is HALDR. And then there's also, they think it might be related to vitamin D deficiencies. Okay, related to vitamin D deficiency, and I'm screwing up on spelling deficiency there. All right, so there's basically a rundown of multiple sclerosis, and once again, it's when your immune system attacks your myelin. It's a demyelinating disease. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you liked it, check out these videos.